Welcome everybody to Tuesday night show and share at Knox Makers. Welcome members, guests, and other aliens or whatever you may be. We're glad you're here. Tonight we have 5 show and shares. These are things that are in progress, maybe finished, maybe wonderful things, or maybe failures. We like to see them all because we all can learn from that. So, first up is Jennifer with the sculpture. We have seen it before. It's a piece in progress, and I can't wait to see the new additions to that. So, Jennifer.
They have eyes. One of them has legs, starting in progress. So, it is still a work in progress. So, I was going to, middle of the week, decided I was gonna deconstruct and make it a statement project of human garbage for the underpiece. But Tony said, no, don't do that, just keep going, put legs on it, finish it. And I'm glad he did because I'm kind of liking where it's going now. I'll do another statement project at some point. So, thank you.
Thank you, Jennifer. That thing is coming along beautifully. Next, we have Timothy with some laser cut assemblies, or what I would call a box of stuff.
Lots of stuff. Thank you. So I have, is this coming through all right? All right. For a long time, I've had this inspiration of building a clock. And of course, like most of us here, I can't just order a clock kit and put it together. I have to actually do things from scratch to enjoy it. So this is one of the inspiration pieces I said. This is a pendulum clock. It's, what's that? Zoom in on it. All right, so this is one of my inspiration pieces that I've been looking at for a while. It is this is actually an upside down assembly. The pivot is here at the top, and the escapement, that little Y piece that's there at the bottom, is traditionally at the top of a clock. Technically that's interesting. I thought it was an interesting thing to build, and so I wanted to kind of design that from scratch. There's a few pieces like that I've kind of been eyeballing. There's another one, just the intricacies of doing that, and I certainly don't have the hand skills to build those gears and all that, so I turned to the laser cutter and tried to figure out where to go with this. I know there's a gear generator, and there's things, but what I was missing is a little bit of that engineering level of being able to build multiple layer assemblies, right, with things aligned and all that kind of stuff. So I started kind of poking around, looking for a cookbook, essentially, of how to connect pieces and how to build assemblies up from scratch, and not really a lot of great stuff. I ran across a couple of very interesting things, though. This is Instructables, sponsored by Autodesk. This particular person doing this joinery article is looking at this and looking at how to connect a lot of different places in a CNC cut or a laser cut kind of thing. So, there's from anything from soft materials, there's some fabrics, felt, tabs. I thought, oh, that's interesting. I'm going to try that sometime. When I get ready. So there's some soft stuff, some more traditional materials, including some cardboards, and then of course what we see a lot here are these kind of tabbed box construction kind of things. There's some there's some websites, programs out there that can be downloaded that help you kind of lay out those box tabs on curved lines and do all kinds of interesting things if you have a flexible material, which I pinned that. So this has all been in my thoughts for a while, and then I came across a. Actually, I shouldn't say that's. I shouldn't give credit. I got a kit as a Christmas present. Somebody kind of spotted my interesting thing. This. Are we zoomed out? That's about it. So this came as a Christmas present. A wooden puzzle. It's several layers. A lot of different interesting assembly techniques, and there it is all kind of put together. Maybe that'll be easier to look at. It's got a lot of layers. You can see 5 layers or so there. There's some interesting things going on that are just for fun. There's a kind of an attached gear. These are both kind of geared separately with a off-center eccentric gears to kind of join them and make them go. That's interesting. It's not part of the function of this clock, but that's interesting. So gears and pivots. Now I've got axles. There are little connectors on the outside here. These are little finger pieces that connect to hold these layers at particular distances from each other, right? So that's all interesting. So I've got this kind of sitting aside to use for a reference of maybe some examples of how to put stuff together. So taking all that, I started down my adventure. And I went to my favorite tool, pencil and paper, made some ideas, kind of wrote down some ideas, try some things out. How do these things work? I measured a few of these, got some ideas. Square holes, round holes, straight pins. Maybe I can do something that would lock in, right? Maybe if I'm going to put something that's going to hang on the wall for years, how am I going to, do all these? Do I need angles? Do I things, and how can I do all this? And so I came down here and I drew a few things of various sizes and put them together. And so I made a set of keys and holes. This might be better if I just kind of hold these things up. Let's see, which way are we here? Does that work? So I have some slots. Made some things of various sizes. Some of them were just about impossible to get in. Others were very easy to get in. I did some kind of detention things, but they were so hard to get in. They did lock, but the little tabs broke off, right? So I have some little notes left myself. This was broken, that was broken, this was the size, right? So I'm just starting this journey of trying to figure out how these things work. And that's in there. It's pretty tight in there. Play around some other sizes, right? Use the printer to kind of put notes on there. Sizes, right? All right, so that's it. And then, so just to kind of see if I could go towards some kind of a working mechanism, I made myself a little kind of a test thing. But this is just simple little standoffs. It's probably easier to see without the Knox Makers. There we go. Simple little standoffs with a little. I found that little slot down the middle was helpful for kind of getting it to bend, flex just a tiny little bit to kind of go in there tightly. And so this actually feels very rigid. At some point when I stop looking at it, I'm going to do a little destructive testing, right, and see how strong that really is. But it feels very rigid right now. So if you're thinking down the road, if I'm thinking towards that clock or going to build, right, front plate, back plate, cut these out, make something a little more decorative, right, and see where that goes. This is where I'm at. This is as far as I've gotten. And I'm very curious if anybody has already gotten some things, they want to share some tips, or if no one has, or if you just want to go on an adventure with me. I've got a lot of free time these days, and I'd love to kind of meet and figure out how to use Inkscape as an engineering design tool, which is not its strong suit as far as I can tell. Freehand is great, but getting things to lay out and duplicate these little slots and lay them out on a pattern has been kind of tricky. So that's where I am. I'm going down this road to see if I can build mechanisms of various shapes, flat plates, gears towards that clock thing, but also I'm interested in going beyond that box tab construction and see where we can go with building things from flat panels into 3 dimensions and moving parts. That's where I am. I'm on Mattermost as Timothy K. if you want to connect with me there, or if you want to try to schedule time, I'm happy to come down here and work on your project and learn something along the way. Thank you.
Thank you, Tim. I do hope when you get that all done, you'll share some of those sizes, the sizes and the different tabs and whatnot to, I don't know how much time I've spent trying to fine-tune things, but that's terrific. Susanna has what she calls an arm-twisted sweater that's in progress. It's called arm-twisted because I made her show it. But I smiled when I did it.
Hey everybody. He did make me show my sweater. It's not done yet. But gosh, let me see. Okay, so like I was just kind of minding my own business, working on my sweater. But this is a sweater that I'm making out of some Cormo wool that I hand spun. I spun the yarn. And since I cannot pass around the sweater because it is still on these sticks, and I would really cry if it fell off and just like it starts coming out, that would be bad. I'm not going to pass it around, but I will pass this around. And for people who are not like all up into yarn, which I don't understand why you're not, because this is so cool. But this is a really good example of how you can take wool that has already been dyed, and they do this thing they call like hand painting the raw fiber, and generally it's a real pain to try and work with because you end up with these color patterns kind of coming together and clashing and looking muddy. But this is a good example of like not as many colors and using it to make the colors come together in a way that is relatively pleasing and doesn't make you look at your sweater with hate. And this is an example of what it looks like when it is all knitted up. And this is the body of the sweater. I'm working on the sleeves, which really lent itself to the arm twisting, because that. But this is the body of it, and I've got this stripe in here, which came from a totally different sheep and thing, and I had to over dye it. It was brown already, but what I discovered is if you take a brown that is not looking good with your other browns, and you're just like, oh my God, I hate this. If you over dye it with an orange, all of a sudden it's cooperating. This is great. This is amazing. This is what you want. So like, yeah. If it's not working with your golds and your other browns, you just, you shake the orange at it and it'll shape right up. Alrighty, here's this.
I have a question.
Yeah.
You say you spun that? You have like a spinning wheel?
Yes, I do. I have a spinning wheel and I have drop spindles. There's a guild here in town, and I was the president last year. Yay, me. But now I'm not anymore, so yay, I have free time. You have a question?
Yes. So how did you figure out the orange was the color you needed to work?
There was some fist shaking involved, and a lot of pained expressions, and a little test dyeing. And that was probably what was the most effective. But the other parts made me feel good, so I include them in the process. I'm also, since I'm up here, I'm going to be teaching the drawing class February 17th, so if you would like to come and like draw for fun and relaxation, I'm going to be doing that, doing some meditative drawing, Don't worry if you feel like you can only do stick figures. When we're done, you will be doing a little bit more than that and feeling confident and comfortable and fun. Anyway, that's it. That's all I got. Man, I'm done. I'm done.
Thank you for letting me twist your arm. It was well worth it. I learned something. That's very cool. Next, we have Daryl, who doesn't have a knife, but he has pocket savers. Oh, yeah, I said that. Sorry.
Just the way you don't always have a lamp. True. There. Yeah, yeah. Let's see. My slides are malfunctioning, so that's a good start. Yeah, so the deal is I make, I've been working on making knives in the blacksmith shop. And the problem is you make something like this and you say, here, enjoy. And like, where are you going to put it? Like in your pocket? So if you don't want to cut your pockets all to pieces, you make a pocket saver. In this case, a fold of leather into which you insert the knife, hang it on your belt loop, and and so I've just got a little progress. I've made 2 so far. Let's see. I've done this before. All right. So here's how you start. You take a piece of graph paper and you draw a line down the center, roughly. You place your knife kind of up next to it, and you can't really see it super well, but there's an outline of the knife in here. Then you just draw a shape around it, trying to leave some room for some wiggle room for the knife to, once you fold the leather around it, you want it to close, and for there to be room for, say, this big fat round part, That's a little tricky. This sheet is another I made for this knife. And it drew up enough that it, obviously wasn't going to work. Thankfully, I had this little guy handy that it fit. So you draw it up. Shoot. I'll just slide. You then cut out that drawing. You fold it. I fold it and cut it. You can redraw the whole thing. You can see here I've got the little belt loop piece. I've colored in on this edge a strip about, I don't know, 1/4-ish inch wide. That gets stitched in here in this little rim, this little rim down here. Your stitches go through that piece, and it keeps your knife from cutting your stitches. Okay. Next, here on the top photo, I've cut out the leather, right, to match. I don't know what this is. It's vegetable tan leather. It's probably about 7 to 8 weight. Too thin. My first one I made, not this one, the leather was way too thin, and it just wouldn't grip. It wouldn't hold the knife. So I've also, in the bottom picture, I've cut out the little piece that again goes in the middle, here, right? Next up, where am I? Come on. Oh, I can't get my slides to work. But basically, I came here and got out the stamping tools, and you can see on this one, it's got a pretty decent little basket weave stamp. I've got a little maker's mark, which is here. It's upside down, but I've got that. And then you stitch it all together. These are stitches called saddle stitches. They're not the best. They're uglier on the back side. But it's fairly tidy, and it's work I'm pretty happy with. And I guess I don't want to take up too much more time, but once I got to the point where I stamped it, I dyed it, I cemented in that little strip that goes on this inside edge of it, and then stitch it up and apply some neat's foot oil or saddle soap or whatever you want to kind of protect it a little bit. So that is a pocket saver. Thanks. Yeah.
Did you get it wet to help form it for the knife?
Yeah. 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 I wet it to I wet it to stamp it. I was a little damp just from washing when I, not stained, when I dyed it. And then, yeah, it was a little damp, and I put the knife in it and kind of clipped it a little. I actually clipped it a little bit on, where am I? I put a little clip here on this edge just to kind of help it hold that form while it hugged that knife. Yeah.
That piece that protects the stitches?
Yeah.
You cemented that inside, is it like
Mm-hmm.
4 inch wide?
It's roughly. I mean, I'm bad at measurements, but yeah, it's probably a neighborhood of a 1/4 inch wide. And yeah,
Put it right down.
contact cement, and you put it on one side, and then you contact cement its opposite side and the other flap, and you smush it all together. And then it's just a little strip right in here.
Okay,
Yeah, and it goes from tip all the way down to here.
okay.
Yeah. Any other questions? Or? Cool. I'm not going to pass sharp items around. If anybody wants to see this or critique it after, I'm game.
All right, thank you, Daryl. Last but not least, we have Joe. He is going to talk about things that suck. Here, here.
Hello, everybody. Should work. All right, so some of the cool things we make around here are things we make for the shop. And I've had a couple of people being curious about the new ventilation system that we have in the weld shop now. So I thought I'd do a little show and share showing how to turn it on and the journey it took to get us there. This is the blower from the original filter stack that we had. I don't know if you remember it or not, but it took up a lot of space in the room. And then it reintroduced it cleaned the air, but it put it right back into the room. The system we have now is taking the air and pumping it outside for us. So we don't have to have filters anymore. We don't have to worry about, and it has a greater suction capacity. It moves faster because it doesn't have to push it through those filters. So anyways, we can do things like stick weld inside now, which I'm really happy about. I made this stand for it and turned it on its side like that because it was facing another direction. And then because we're putting it outside, we had to figure out a way to keep it waterproof. And we were talking, it's turned out like I kept on saying, oh, I'll make a little doghouse for it. I'll make it a little doghouse for it. And somebody asked, wait, do you mean actually like a doghouse, or is that like a trade term? And I'm like, well, it was a trade term, but now maybe we should use a doghouse because that's a really good idea. So we did. It lives inside there. Let me back this out some. Minus. Yeah, minus. There we go. So I put a little screen over the door so that bugs and animals wouldn't actually live in it. I'm pointing to where the header of the ductwork is going to go. This is where it's about to be installed. And there it is after we got the ductwork into it. Ductwork. Starting to cut up the aluminum that I made for the box hoods, and I got to use one of my favorite tools is the snap chalk line. It's like the best tool. It's so fun. And the bandsaw zipped through it, no problems. And there's all the pieces all ready to be assembled. As I was welding it, that thin aluminum likes to warp real easy, so you have to keep the heat down by skipping around. And you can see that I clamped down angle irons across it so that it would, hold it there and it wouldn't warp on you. There's some of the welds. I TIG welded that aluminum in. And there's some of it coming together. Come on. That's the top of it. That's the ceiling on it. Got that boxed in. And this is where the duct is going to go into the piece. So I made a little circle with that. I took a punch and I made a punch line all the way around it, because when you plasma burn, you can't really see that with your through your dark shield, but you can see those little punch marks all the way around your circle. And you just kind of connect the dots with your plasma arc like that. And you just follow the circle right around. So the bottom of it, I figured out that like you can't just have it open. So I made little slots for it to go, like baffles, I call them. And closer to the center, they're closer together. And the farther to the end you get, the wider they are. And that way, because the vent was going to come in right in the middle, and it needs to distribute the suction really to the ends. So you had to make like graduatingly larger slots to get the air to flow right and to get the suction you need at the end. Otherwise, it would just come straight up the hose in the middle, and the ends wouldn't really do much. So there's me up on the table. Sometimes you got to get out of position and stuff to get it to work. So can't always weld flat on the table. And that's the thing together with the cables on it, ready to go up into the sky. I used some turnbuckles so that we could level it out a little bit. And there's the first one in there. I painted the bottom of it flat black so that it wouldn't be like a disco ball when you're welding. You know, you don't want to have but, and then I TIG welded the first one and most of the second one, but then we got this cool new tool. It's an aluminum capable spool gun. So we can now MIG weld with aluminum in our shop. And this was me putting it through the trial. It was pretty easy. It was a lot like regular MIG welding, which is a lot more accessible for a lot of people. So being able to MIG weld aluminum is a really big brag for us to have. And that's the second one up there, and the hose up there, and they're both up there now. So I'm pretty happy with how they turned out. This was the draft test to make sure that they would actually pull the smoke. And I was really happy with it. I could even take it outside of where it was, and it would pull it in from the side. That's what we're looking for. So I'm pretty happy. And even if it misses a little bit of smoke, we have a whole room exchange going on now, so it really does clean the shop out real good. This is it kicking butt outside. And what's funny is that it acts like a leaf blower. If you look out in the alley there, there's a real clean alley right down there. There's no leaves. And the button to turn it on is here, right? When you first walk in, you just come in or turn it off. But anyways, that's how you operate it. It's just to the left when you come through the door, right by the safety equipment. It takes a second to wind up, so if you don't hear it come on straight away, it's no big deal. It's on its way. But that is the new ventilation system that we have. Well, it was a lot of work for a lot of people. I mean, people worked on the electronics that I'm not an expert on. There was a lot of stuff going on there, so it was a multi-person project. And speaking of that kind of thing, I have another call to arms. If you have a willing set of hands after show and share, we want to move some of the scrap around and remove some of the tables and reorganize a little bit in the weld shop. So if you got some gloves and you're wearing some clothes you don't care about, come on back and help us out. Thanks.
Thank you, Joe. I think that's a perfect example of what the czars and other people here do for the good of our whole community. And we've got a great community, there's no doubt, and we really appreciate the work that you and all of the other czars and czarinas and board and volunteers, and we just really appreciate all that you do. Did anybody have something? You have something to show? Yes, all right, come on up.
Hi y'all, I'm Narita. I'm super excited to share this with y'all. I've been crocheting simple things like hats and blankets and other things for quite some time. I learned how to do it on my second deployment. It was the first time I think I ever sat still for hours on end. I attended a veterans event one day, and we met up at the Clinch River Yarn Company, and I couldn't walk out of there without spending a whole bunch of money. It was the first time I ever purchased fancy yarn to make something for myself. So I've been crocheting this beanie, and I just love the hand-dyed yarn. They only had they had one skein of this really colorful one, so I got a few colors to match. But I'm most excited about this shawl that I've been making to go along with it. So I started this shawl, and I wanted it to be like almost like a pentagon shape to really wrap around and angle on the shoulders nicely. So I started off by doing just 4 separate sections so it would have that shape, and it took quite some time. I got the yarn in March of last year, and I just finished this right before Christmas. So I'll hold it up over here. Since I've given so many crochet projects as gifts to everyone else, I hadn't really made anything for myself, so I'm really excited about it. The next thing is I just need to find a better way to fasten it. I had a random hair accessory, so I just have been using that, but I want to find a nice button or some type of closure for it. But yeah, that's my shawl. Thank you.
I got a question. I have to ask, how long did it take you?
From March till December. Just working on it for like an hour or 3 here and there. It took quite some time. I never worked with yarn this fine before, so. Yeah. Thanks, y'all.
Okay, anybody else? All righty then. We have classes coming up. And let's drag these out here. We've got February the 2nd, Perfect Miters and Splines. I'm sure Brian will be doing that. On the 4th, Intro to KiCad and PCB Fabrication, Part 3 of 5. I have no idea what that is. Intro to Metalworking on the 5th. A new member's onboarding on the 7th. If you are a trial member, attending a new member's onboarding is a requirement for membership. And even if you're not a trial member but are planning on joining, you can also come to that meeting so that you can find out all about us. On the 9th, Woodworking 101. 11th, Laser Cutting Authorization. 11th also, Intro to KiCad and PCB. On the 11th also, Choosing and Abusing Transistors. Who's teaching that? Ray, okay. Then there is Creating Wood Inlays on the 12th, and there are more beyond that. You can look on the website and look at events and see all of the upcoming classes. And this will be a great time to say thank you to all of the volunteer teachers who teach these classes. It is greatly appreciated. I've attended a number of them myself, and I've learned so much. So I encourage you to do that. Also, did you have a question?
I'm chickening out. I wanted to show you something.
Well, come up here and do it. Don't be a chicken.
Can I go to my car and get it?
Go fast. Go fast. I'll try to talk during that time.
Shouldn't be a problem.
Yeah, you're probably right. Yep, that's right. Illuminating words of wisdom, indeed. Yes, enlightening. Don't forget that Joe needs some help with moving some metal around. So that would be greatly appreciated, especially in light of all the work that he does. And I think with many hands, we can get that done in hopefully pretty short order. We also need some volunteers, as we do every Tuesday, to change the AC filters. Who would like to get high and do that? All right, man in the back wants to get high and change the filters. And we need a volunteer to take the garbage out. Who would like to be on garbage duty? Don't everybody? All right, a couple of volunteers here. All right, thank you, gentlemen. Do appreciate it. And now our last show has arrived.
Okay. Hello, I'm Deanne. And I'm really throwing myself out here, but I need some help. And I'm going to calm my nerves. So I said yes to a project that was painting a whole bunch of buildings in Dandridge. And I was having fun with it, and it's grouped in 6s, okay? So the lady said, hey, I need to get a display for these. So I was like, I could make a display. So I went to my garage and I looked at all the scraps of what we had, bought a few things, and put together a display. So how does this work? Okay. So this was kind of the concept for it. But then my problem is that I'm here looking for advice and counsel is then we had a second set of 6. So then I was like, okay, fine, but I had only sketched out the details. She had the one display at her store, so I was trying to mimic what I had already. So then I was like, well, crap, I used scraps. I'll make 2 at home that I know are matching, which was good because the one that was in the prototype, you know, has some loose parts and looks a tad different. So now we're looking at a 3rd set. So instead of having a whole bunch of 6 count sets, it's got a spinner. The irony is I couldn't get, for the same price of 16 spinners, was 1 or 2. So I've got a whole bunch at home. So I'm ready for the other ones. Anyway, so there is some logic behind why it leans, is because I wanted, so when people are pulling the stuff in and out, that it like has a stopper and it's kind of leaning, which gives it a funky element. And then, of course, I've got the sign, which this was a learning element too of getting a print on wood. So again, I'm looking for, if somebody's looking at this going, hey, I work with Plexi, I know how to better construct. Do you see what I did here? This is very time consuming. Whoops, I stopped. And then, of course, my final thing is because there's 3 sets of 6, instead of having 3 displays, why not have 2 of, do the math, 2 of 9? Might be a prettier display without being really high, and she wants it countertop. So that's what I'm bringing to you all today. So.
How did you print the little sign on top?
Well, I love experimenting. That's why I love being here. I'm sure you all can relate. I took a whole bunch of scrap wood and then tested some of the theories of the poly and how to transfer ink to wood. I didn't want laser. I've worked with lasers just because it's too clean, and the whole project, well, you can't see it. The whole project is, it's clean and marketable in a store, but it still has that homemade look. So that was the piece. So, anyway, if anybody has advice for me after, please.
Your 6 to 9, have you thought about instead of making it just one piece that flips, turning it into a triangle with a base that would still fit on your spinner?
That, I,
3 and 3?
yes, that would be, I feel like that would be a great idea. And then what I need as well help with is the plexi portion. If I can just make that all plexi for the 9, it'll probably be sturdier too with that. But are you saying, I was debating if I would use just 3 poles or if I should use 4 solid boards? Yeah, and just do it that way. So, yeah, yeah. So, okay, cool. All right, thank you all.
Thank you for not chickening out. And I'm sure somebody will lend a hand or some advice. I think that that does it. We've got people for garbage and filters. We're going to help Joe. We really appreciate your coming tonight, and thank you online folks for joining in to watch. And I guess with that, we'll just head toward the shop and make something or break something. Have a good time. All right, thanks a lot.